A couple of days have passed between the previous step and this one because I need the local color or the first layer on which I painted the blouse to fully dry before I'm able to do this. This being painting the darker and the finer parts of the shadows in a bit more detail. If I didn't wait for this first layer to dry before doing this, then what would happen is as I'm applying these new shadows, the color would blend with that of the local color underneath. And so it would take a couple more layers and a lot more time to be able to get them to be as dark as I want them to be. And so with them, I'm showing the creases that are on the blouse, after which I can start showing other finer details like the individual threads that are visible around the buttonholes and the crests or the top parts of the creases. And once again, to be able to do this, it helps if the layer underneath is dry. That way I can even use my finger to spread the paint every now and then without worrying about smudging. These are much lighter coats than the ones I used earlier, so light they can't even be called a layer of their own. I'm only calling them a layer because it's a different step or a new step as compared to the one before. But generally before applying them on the canvas in this way, I first rub the brush on another piece of canvas to spread the paint evenly on the bristles and also to get rid of any excess. That applies for the creases that you can see here, but for the individual threads like the one I'm painting right now, I'm not rubbing the paint on a different piece of canvas before applying it on this canvas. However, even though I'm painting continuous lines for sections where I'm showing things like the thread that knits the pieces of fabric together, I still like to have a lot of control over how the paint actually appears on canvas, and so I'm not mixing it with solvent as I did earlier when I was painting the outlines in the first stage. When paint is too viscous, it gets runny, which is great for something like the outline because then it's a layer that's going to be covered anyway, and so the details don't really matter in that case as they do here. But as you can see, mixing the paint with some solvent is not the only way to get it to show these unbroken continuous lines. In other words, the stakes are a bit higher when it's the final layer, which is going to be visible. The blouse has some patterns on it in some parts, and normally when painting something that has patterns, it's easier to first paint the whole cloth or the whole surface as though the patterns don't exist. Then later on the patterns or the designs in this case can be painted on a dry surface without the risk of their color smudging with that of the layer underneath.